I'm gonna keep this brief. I hated Transformers Beast Machines. It's a direct sequel series to a beloved but not flawless show, Beast Wars. Beast Wars being really good, but rushing things with the ending left a sour taste in my mouth, so I went in blind to the sequel and woo, oh man, I got some things to say. Without further ado, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly of Transformers Beast Machines. The good. In concept, I like a story that's a direct follow-up to the events of the previous series, and people really enjoyed the intro. I wish I was one of them. Well, that's it. The bad. Again, like I said, Beast Wars is not flawless. The ending was a bit rushed. They introduced a bunch of characters and then immediately killed them off, and some of the main characters suffered the same fate, and it's not addressed or brought up. I'm not a fan of these character designs. I feel after the Transmetals, things started getting a little ugly. More natural for sure. They have interesting silhouettes, but man, look what they did to my boys. Again, this trend started in Beast Wars and is not a Beast Machines exclusive gripe. This is a nitpick. One thing that is not a nitpick, there's not much variance compared to the tundras and deserts and jungles of Earth. And I get this is a different planet, so it's not going to have the same settings or it would get boring. But the one setting we have, Cybertron, is just one big dark blue city. Everything is so dark. They only start playing with the lighting in, I'd say, the last 2 episodes. And Silverbolt's relationship with Black Arachnia, that takes a backseat because he says he has no time for a relationship until Megatron is defeated. It's a bit jarring because he acts like his old self initially.
Oh, dark poison of my heart. It is I, my love.
Only to become more serious and emo after Black Arachnia spends so much time longing for a former partner, doing everything in her power to get him back.
Do you have any idea what I went through to get you back again?
After what you went through.
A bit of foreshadowing, but a Maximo actually caring about their friends is refreshing. His comrades trying to get their old friend Spark back only for him to not show any compassion for her. Then in the last episode of the show we're supposed to buy that they're back in love? Beast Wars spent 2 seasons building up their relationship and Black Arachnia's faction shift. Once they were officially both Maximals, they always had each other's backs. Then Beast Machines happens and Silverbolt isn't reciprocating any affection from his beloved that has spent so long trying to get him back. Until the very last episode? Hell nah. The ugly. Now, again, episode 1 starts us off on a bad note. We come back to a planet of Cybertron that we spent so long trying to get back to, only to find out that everybody's gone and has been infected with this virus off screen. You mean to tell me Megatron had time to come up with a virus powerful enough to infect an entire planet full of millions of people and then have an army of drones ready to round up their sparks and collect them so you can rule the planet? All happened off screen? One of the biggest rules of storytelling is show, don't tell. And they eventually do show us, and it's still some bull. It doesn't make any sense. When did he have time to do all this? They didn't show him coming up with no virus. There's no foreshadowing in the previous series. There's no explanation. It just happens. That's something Beast Machines loves to do. They just do stuff and you're supposed to just buy it. Another problem I have is that the implications of the show are so anti-Transformers. What do you mean Cybertron was once organic and lush in fauna all along? This implies that the planet Cybertron, millions of years ago, all the OG Transformers were organic. All these fossils talk about, forget the origin of the Quintessons bringing robots to this planet and them revolting and eventually learning to transform. Again, this is in line with the themes of the show. The technology isn't the opposite of nature, but they can coexist together in harmony. And I may have bought that if the more robotized G1 Transformers were cold and unfeeling machines. But we factually know that that's not true. They have emotions. And speaking of emotions, everyone is so cruel to each other. Nobody feels like their old selves we come to know and love. Just serious and mean-spirited to each other. I get the Maximals being on edge after losing their memories on a foreign land that was once their home. Your salvation after being stranded for years engaged in a war that you got brought into and didn't want to fight. Only to get back and realize that the fighting isn't over and not being able to transform, which is kind of your whole thing. But these brothers in arms, these comrades, these friends are just plain mean to each other. and it's so disheartening.
Did a fine job winning it.
Something you want to say.
Don't you see it? These killer ferns would be the ultimate weapon to spring on Megatron.
No, that is not what the Matrix intends for this plant life.
The constant bickering is exhausting. But there's one character in particular that I find to be the most egregious. Rhinox. This is straight up character assassination. The peace-loving, flower-smelling scientist of the group, who's extremely loyal to Optimus and has his back when people questioned his leadership throughout the Beast Wars, always helping his comrades in battle. When they were blind, he'd lead them back to base. When Optimus was seemingly killed, he brought him back to life. It's established that he's sick of the fighting and wants to end the Beast Wars and get back home as much as his fellow Maximals. Which is why in Beast Machines, when we find out that Tankor is Rhinox after all, the reason for the betrayal comes out of nowhere. There's no foreshadowing. There's no hints at betrayal or ideological change or wanting Cybertron to reach technological perfection in Beast Wars. All of a sudden, he's ambitious and power hungry, which leads to his downfall. When his consciousness is free and he's talking to his former comrades, he says, Megatron is right. As long as the spark remains individualistic, the wars will only continue. Which I will admit is a very interesting point, and I wish this was explored more. There's a saying that humans won't stop fighting until there's only one left. Given the history of how the Maximals and Predacons' ancestors engaged in a civil war that raged on for literal millions of years, history is just repeating itself with the Beast Wars. Each of these bots may have their own factions and ideologies, but their war ends with them only hurting each other and innocent bystanders in the process. But do we dwell on these themes at all during the show, outside of the repeated mantra, the seeds of the future lie buried in the past? The answer is no. Remember who was the one who defeated Megatron in the OG show, right? The actual maniacal, power-hungry character of the show. Yet he's crazed for power? And I don't think Cheetor's arc of him becoming the leader is executed very well. He undermines Optimus constantly, and him and his fellow Maximals turn on him quickly. Leadership is kind of just thrust upon him. Even Optimus's most loyal troops turn their backs on him at a moment's notice when things aren't going right. While Cheetor's leading has worked out in the past, you've got people like Silverbolt constantly questioning his authority, calling Cheetor kid and he doesn't respect him, but Silverbolt is technically younger than Cheetor, so what's he on about? Not just the Maximals I got problems with. Let's talk about the drones. You mean to tell me that two of the best generals in the history of Cybertron, they're both literally undefeated and have never lost a battle, yet are constantly losing even when they have factories and drones that outnumber the Maximals 100 to 1. But the way they get defeated is they get launched into space by an anti-gravity machine and Stryker just forgets he can fly, I guess. But it's shown that they literally could have just moved out of the way. That's what Thrust does. He just moves out of the way. He says, damn, this anti-gravity about to launch me into space. Let me just move. These are supposed to be the smartest generals in the history of Cybertron, yet that's how they're defeated. Why don't they just fly back? Enough questions. What am I thinking? I think the most egregious thing in the show is the character Waspinator. Not Waspinator himself. Not him becoming Thrust. No. If you'll recall, he was the last Cybertronian standing on Earth due to a rushed ending. Do you know how he got back to Cybertron after he was left? We know it couldn't have been a ship because it quote-unquote took forever for him to get back. This implies that this motherfucker flew back. No spaceship, you know, the things that were damaged on the crash landing, and anytime one was introduced it was destroyed. We would assume he doesn't have enough energon for the trip because it's several light years away. The only escape pod left was used for the Maximals and Megatron to return home. Waspinator returning to Cybertron implies that these motherfuckers could have just hopped on Optimus's back and flown back however long it would have taken because they lived so long. Those plans that Waspinator had of no longer fighting kind of gives him a bad ending. After being beat up, exploded, dismembered at every turn as the comic relief of Beast Wars, he resigns from fighting and walks off into the sunset. Considering 82% of the remaining Predacons die by the last episode of Beast Wars, this was a good ending for him, all things considered. But he just goes right back to the Beast Wars and gets reformatted into a damn bug. It literally makes no sense. The Beast Wars were taking place on prehistoric Earth in the past. Beast Machines is taking place in the future. How did Waspinator travel light years away to a planet in the future? It doesn't make any sense. In conclusion, my biggest mistake with this show was watching it directly after Beast Wars. Not saying Beast Wars is the pinnacle of shows or anything, rather the characters are nothing like their previous selves, which makes this a tough watch. Maybe watching this in a vacuum as its own thing, you may enjoy it. It is only 26 episodes. In closing, the show is too ambitious, with too many unlikable characters, and too many unanswered questions in one boring setting. The show commits the second worst sin any piece of media can, that it was a chore to force myself to finish watching these repetitive episodes. Anytime you catch yourself checking the runtime so you can be done with it, you're in for a bad time. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Did y'all enjoy Beast Machines? Should I cover Beast Wars or some of the other Transformer shows I've watched? Just let me know. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. I've been Bloom. Deuces.